The fragrance of selfless love that has drawn the world into one family. The truth of an eternal message that has been revealed through every act and word. The fulfillment in service that has been taught by relentless sacrifice. The Lord's own life is indeed His message.
Sai Ram. Greetings and welcome to the 13th episode of our month-long serial entitled The Message of the Lord, which is bringing you the essence of the teachings of Bhagwan Sri Satya Sai Baba. During the last few episodes, we have been focusing on the hospitals established by Swami and the wonderful as well as unique service they have been rendering to the poor and needy. Undoubtedly, these hospitals fulfill a promise that Baba made way back in 1947 when he promised to help the poor and the distressed and wipe out their tears. But there is also a larger message that Baba is sending to all of us through his hospitals. Today, we shall focus largely on that message. But before we do that, there is a tiny little gap that we must fill, and that concerns Swami's mobile hospital project, which is a marvel and institution in itself.
It must be stressed that Swami's mobile hospital is quite different from the standard medical camps that are a regular feature of the Sai Seva world, not only in India but also all over the world. This mobile hospital is something some of you might have seen parked way back at the end of Sai Kulwant Hall. From the outside, it looks like a big bus. But inside, it is a different story altogether. It is a small hospital on wheels with an X-ray, a Doppler ultrasound scanner, and a small lab. This mobile hospital has been in operation since 2006 and has made a sea change to the lives of villagers around Puttaparthi. However, it is not the van itself that has brought about the change, but the amazing spirit of service, dedication, and single-pointed devotion of one wonderful doctor which has made all the difference. That doctor's name is Narasimhan. He volunteered to work on this mobile hospital project in 2006 when Baba launched it. And with the hospital bus, he has made magic. How? Firstly, he has attracted many other doctors to join him in the village service he was engaged in. The team that goes out on every trip has at least 40 members, which includes doctors and paramedical staff. But his roster has more than 300 people on call who take turns and come to Puttaparthi. And some of those who have volunteered are very experienced doctors who have a very good practice elsewhere or are professors in leading medical colleges. So there you see one aspect of Swami's message. Your service must inspire others to join and enlarge the mission. Let's now see how the hospital service operates. Basically, it caters more than 70 villages around Puttaparthi. During the first 15 days of every month, the mobile hospital visits these villages in turn, one village a day. About 15 doctors accompany the bus during every trip. When the bus reaches its destination, the locals who are eagerly waiting welcome it like an honored guest, for it is truly a lifeline for not only those living in the village to which the bus goes, but also a cluster of hamlets around that village. Thus, the hospital serves many more people than it might actually appear to. All the patients requiring attention wait in a shamiana, while outpatient consultation is organized in a set of rooms in the local school. While patients take their turn, those waiting are kept engaged in various ways. Firstly, they are given a lot of advice about how to keep the body healthy. Here, Dr. Narasimhan takes the lead and does his job with great passion. He also tells them about do's and don'ts and what is important, and also recruits local volunteers to get involved in implementing preventive methods. For example, former smokers and alcoholics are regularly used by him to warn the public about the dangers of smoking, drinking, and chewing tobacco. He also takes in young volunteers to keep an eye on many things, like making sure people observe the lessons that they are taught. This local involvement is very important, for it transforms the hospital from their hospital to our hospital. All records of visits, consultations, and treatment given are maintained in the computer database, so that when the hospital comes again for its visit, the follow-up becomes much easier. This is where the hospital is very different from a medical camp, where patients come and are served like people coming to a soup kitchen. Doctors find this particularly satisfying because when they come the next time, they want to know how their prescription is working. The diagnostic facilities in the hospital, plus the number of experts coming along with the bus, also make a huge difference to the locals. For them, such facilities never come to their doorstep. At best, they are available in a few hospitals here and there in towns some distance away. And everywhere the focus is on money. One should not forget to mention that while waiting, the patients are not only shown educative films but also film clips on Swami. They also participate in bhajan singing. That, plus the atmosphere of love and service that is a central feature of the entire program, makes all the difference to the success of the mission. So, let's put down the various factors that make this hospital so unique and amazingly successful. First, of course, there is Swami, who did something unique. In India, idols from temples are taken out in procession so that the old and the disabled can worship from their homes. In this case, Swami says to the villagers, "Don't worry, if you cannot go to a hospital, I will bring the hospital and doctors to you." Next, since the service is free, that removes a huge worry from the minds of the poor people. Swami always says, when you serve, ask what the service has done to you. In this case, Dr. Narasimhan has taken his service so seriously that he has inspired dozens of other doctors to come to Puttaparthi to serve in the mobile hospital program. Now that magnification is something that Baba constantly induces by giving so much love himself. Moreover, doctors of this roving hospital not merely examine and treat, but also advise and guide. And through this process, they make people give up various bad habits. What is even more important, they make the locals get involved. Above all, they bring to the entire process a spiritual ambience that pervades the entire mission. Let's now look a little deeper into all this, especially how a simple thing like this is far more significant than it appears. On the fact of it, the mobile hospital program is an extension of the main hospital program, bringing the hospital to their doorstep rather than they having to go to the hospital. However, there is a bigger and a stronger message behind all this. Swami is basically asking each and every one of us, are you moved at all by the suffering of those who have no help other than God? Where is this God? In heaven? Is not God within you? Why is that God not able to come out and help? Does He not do it in some cases? Do you know why? Because such people have allowed their heart to rule their lives rather than their minds. History tells us that it is because the heart of Florence Nightingale overflowed with compassion that the entire profession of nursing came into existence. Similarly, there are instances of doctors who have actually infected themselves in order to find cures for diseases that until then were terrible curses. Keeping the above points in view, if we look at the world as a whole, we would find that often poor health and poverty go together. That is not to say that the rich do not become sick. Of course they do. On the other hand, poverty has inbuilt factors that make ill health almost unavoidable. Let us spend a minute trying to understand how these factors influence the health of poor people, each in its own way, starting with food. When money is scarce, it inevitably leads to malnutrition, which is a condition that is produced when the body does not receive its due quota of nutrients. A baby born in a poor family has a handicap almost from day one, since its mother is hardly able to feed milk to the child. Nutrition deficiency in infants straightaway reduces their body immunity, affects their brain growth, and in general stunts body growth as well. On top of it, poor children are made to work from an early age when, due to lack of food, they have poor stamina. So, it is not difficult to see that poverty brings ill health in a tow, literally from birth. Add to this the additional problems created by dirty water, lack of sanitation, and polluted air due to garbage everywhere. Is it any wonder that over 1 billion people have huge health problems simply because they are born poor? For many in the comfort zone, all this reduces to just statistics or small news items in morning newspapers. But for people whose entire life is a struggle just to keep alive, it is a different story. Planners talk of increasing productivity, making the country competitive in science and engineering, etc. But do they appreciate that all these plans are invariably going to leave out millions who are poor and can therefore hardly even get on to the ladder of growth?
Okay then, fine. Yeah, sure. Speak to you later. Bye.
Most people would shake their heads and say,
Listen, you're talking about huge societal problems. It is meaningless to speak about it to people like me. I'm after all an individual, and there is only so much that I can do. Well, problems always exist, and we just have to live with them. Maybe helping out a bit here and bit there.
This is invariably how people in the comfort zone would speak. Even the very rich do so. They are too busy and simply do not have enough time to manage their own affairs. But just look back at what Baba has done. He was poor and yet he did monumental things. How? Not by looking at his purse. In fact, he never had one. Rather, what he always invested was unlimited compassion, abundant pure love, deep dedication, and continuous involvement. Love is a great and powerful magnet. With it, one becomes many, and then there is synergy among the many. It is that multiplier effect that has enabled Baba to achieve so many amazing results, even though he started with practically no cash. Throughout the world, people are crying out for help all the time. But barring a few, a good many of those who have wealth and can help have neither the inclination nor the time. Indeed, not even the idea of occasional help. Consider, for example, the state of Orissa in India. God has endowed it with a lot of natural resources like water, forests, minerals, etc. Yet, even today in the age of super planes, most people in Orissa are miserably poor. Huge corporations engage in steel making and mining, but they have very little money to provide schools, dispensaries, water taps, and even elementary sanitary facilities. Here we must recall Baba's visit to the metropolitan city of Mumbai in 1999, at which time it was called Bombay. There, Swami was given a reception at the Corporate Stadium in South Bombay, a prestigious area. Welcoming Swami, speaker after speaker said, "Baba, Bombay is in deep trouble. There is absolutely no safety. We cannot go for early morning walks as we used to. Our children are not safe while going to school. There is so much crime. The situation is becoming unbearable. You alone can save us. Please do. We are looking to you."
Hari 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 Smarana Karo. Hari 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 Smarana Karo.
Swami said in the discourse that he gave later, "I have carefully heard all that you have said, but just reflect on this. Well-to-do people in this city live in skyscrapers. Have you ever looked down from your balconies? If you did, you would see slums everywhere. You get water in the taps in your homes. These people have no homes and no taps. Your children can go to school. Their children have to go and work. If you fall sick, you can get treated in a hospital. If they fall sick, which hospital would treat them if their sickness is serious? Have you ever spent 1 minute thinking about their problems and difficulties? So many of you have gathered here to tell me about your problems. But how many times have you ever gathered to even think about solving the problems of the poor of your own city? Baba never minces words and speaks out his mind, irrespective of who the listener is, provided the listener needs to be taught the basics. Swami thus told his Bombay audience, "Bombay is the stomach of India. When the stomach gets upset, it affects the whole body. Thus, when the poor have innumerable problems and you do not bother to do anything about it, the effect of those problems would also reach out to you. The sooner you learn about this elementary fact and do something about it, the better it is for you." So you see, if we look a bit behind the hospital, we can see not only how Baba got them going, but also how he has sustained them and even arranged for them to improve and grow. One more point, and an important one too. There is a fundamental difference in the way the East has approached the problems of the body than done by the West. In the West, if a person has an ailment, say connected with the stomach, liver or whatever, treatment is focused on that organ alone. In a manner of speaking, this makes sense. After all, this is what one does in the case of, say, a car. When one takes a car having some trouble to a garage for repair, one gets that part which is giving trouble fixed. It may be the engine, the starter motor, the brakes, or anything for that matter. The same approach was adopted in the case of the human body and seemed perfectly logical until recently, that is. Increasingly, it is being recognized that the human body is not like a mechanical system. That is because humans have a mind, which everyone is now quite sure influences the body in more ways than one had imagined earlier. Thus, increasingly, even doctors in the West are beginning to realize that patients must be treated as one whole, rather than as a system in which one organ was not functioning properly. One doctor who has taken this much seriously than many others is Dr. Mitch Krukov of Durham in North Carolina. Dr. Krukov has done pioneering work in establishing that praying for patients in a systematic manner actually sends good vibrations to the minds of the patient. In turn, that stimulates the body, encouraging it to do its best to help the healing process administered externally by the doctor.
Mitch Krukov is one of my heroes. Here's an individual who has established himself in the challenging realm of hard science, taking one step extra into that uncharted plane of religion and spirituality.
Patients and staff believe that they are working in God's hospital. They are being cared for in God's hospital. The energy in this hospital is really a healing energy. There's an atmosphere around the staff as they do their work, a joy. You could imagine a hospital for Christians where Jesus physically walked around.
So there it is. This issue of body-mind interaction is a big topic in itself, and we cannot go into there due to lack of time. But this much is for sure. The aura of love in Swami's hospitals do help in the speedy recovery of patients. This is what Dr. Michael Nobel of Switzerland had to say on this.
To find free hospitals, but combinations of the two, of a super specialty, highly advanced, state-of-the-art hospital which is free to the poor is a unique, completely a unique concept. And if we add the idea of the Sai Baba's presence, the spirituality which his presence in form of photos or his actual presence lends to the hospital, it becomes a very unique creation. I know hospitals very well, but I've never seen anything like this.
Changing the subject, let us now see what Swami has got to say on keeping the body-mind complex healthy. Now this is an important point because staying healthy does not mean only taking care of the body, but also taking care of the mind and the senses. First, let us see what Swami has got to say in general about this subject. Just have a look at this clip.
ఈ దేహములు అనేటువంటిదంతా కూడాను ఒక పెద్ద మ్యాగ్నెట్ కారు. ఈ కన్నులు అనేటువంటిది ఈ యొక్క కారుకు లైట్లు, ఈ యొక్క నోరు దీనికి హార్న్, ఈ యొక్క దీని లోపల మైండ్ స్టీరింగ్, ధర్మార్థ కామ మోక్షములు ఈ నాలుగు కూడాను ఈ కారుకు టైర్స్. టైర్స్ లోపల ఫెయిత్ అనేటువంటి గాలి ఉండాలి. ఇది కూడాను ఫ్రంట్ టైర్స్ కు వేరే ఉండాలి, బ్యాక్ టైర్స్ కు వేరే ఉండాలి. ఏ టైర్ లో గాలి ఎక్కువగా ఉంటుందో దాన్ని తీసేసేస్తారు, ఏ టైర్ లో గాలి తక్కువగా ఉంటుందో దాన్ని పంపు కొడతారు. మన యొక్క స్టాక్ ఈ కారుకు పెట్రోల్ బంక్ కనుక ఈ కారు యందు సర్వత్రము ఉంటుండాలి.
As expected, Swami spoke in Telugu. Let us now summarize what Swami said. Basically, Swami compared the human body to the car, and in the process he made the following observations.
ఈ దేహములు అనేటువంటిదంతా కూడాను ఒక పెద్ద మ్యాగ్నెట్ కార్.
So body is like a car which is magnetic.
The eyes of a human are like the lights of a car. They help you to see where you're going.
ఈ యొక్క నోరు దీనికి హార్న్.
The mouth is like the horn of a car.
ఈ యొక్క దీని లోపల మైండ్.
The mind is like a steering wheel and determines the direction your life would take. That, by the way, is an important analogy. The stomach is like the petrol tank. And finally, Baba compares the tires to the fourfold conduct of life observed in ancient India. This point is a bit difficult to understand for people who are not familiar with Indian scriptures, and so maybe a few words of explanation would suffice. You know, the scriptures of India do not demand people to live like monks. They accept that ordinary people would like to have money and possessions. They would also have desires of various kinds, especially to get married and raise a family. So, a fourfold code of conduct called Purushartha was laid, according to which dharma had to be the basis of everything one did in life, including the acquisition of money and having desires. A strong moral foundation for everything that one did was thus considered a must. Next, it was stipulated that as one grows older, one gave up wants and desires slowly but steadily. Thus, by making dharma the basis and slowly sublimating one's desires, one could, so declared the scriptures, eventually attain moksha or liberation. Baba compares the four tires of a car to the Purushartha and adds that Just as the air pressure in the four tires must be suitably adjusted so that the car does not lose balance while moving, so also in life, wealth acquisition and desires must be strictly regulated. You might ask, but what have the Purushartha got to do with health and healthcare? Everything, because a person who leads a well-regulated life and controls his or her desires and wants would have mental peace. Remember the old saying, a healthy body requires a healthy mind? Well, if you have a healthy mind, your doctor bills would automatically come down. And you know that would be good for you and the society too. Just think for a minute, how many health problems people get into thanks to desires? How much money is wasted and squandered because people want to become rich quickly? So you see, although healthcare might be a subject in itself as far as organization, planning, projects, etc. are concerned, at the end of the day, it all boils down to what we do with our lives. Baba's constant advice is that if we take to the path of spirituality, not only can we be healthy and enjoy mental peace all the time, but through service can help others to enjoy that same benefit. And when large number of people feel good and happy, it is good for society, is it not? Take a look. Just by his very presence, Swami is able to fill so many with so much happiness.
Do you know how many we can make happy if we just follow Baba's teachings and put them into practice? Do think about it. That's all we have for this episode. It has been quite a long one, but the subject was also equally important and we had to dilate on it. Do join us tomorrow for our next episode, and we have something that is equally inspiring and new. Thank you. Jai Sai Ram.